So I concluded in my Emerson Apache review that I didn't recommend it, and Pete Beck, I think somewhat rightly, took some issues with that conclusion. The review had a lot of positive things about it, and sort of, I'm inferring from the comment a bit here, but a lot of the review was positive, so the negative conclusion kind of came out of nowhere. And I think that sort of comes down to how I feel like I have to review Emerson knives as a knife reviewer in 2025. There's a lot that I love about Emerson's, whether it's a newer design like this Apache, or one of his older designs like this Headless Horseman here. I've collected quite a number of Emersons. I've never quite gotten into his customs just for budgetary reasons. But whether it's a new model or an old one, as long as it's a new construction, I find that their action, the way this thumb disc action feels, the way it snaps out, the way these washers feel, the look of the blades, the look of the handles, the ergonomics, the way these knives feel sort of aesthetically, and sort of the user experience, the pleasure of having and holding them, is still some of the best in the entire market. This is an extremely cool knife. It's cool to look at, it's cool to hold, it's cool to play around with. But the problem is when I am reviewing Emerson knives as cutting tools. Some of the consistent things that Emerson knives do really hold it back in a way that it's getting harder and harder for me to not simply see as worse. A lot of the argument historically for Emerson's has been, they're made for hard use. They're made to be sharpened on a rock. They're, famous in the worst places, all that. So that's why they have these relatively low saber grinds. That's why they have a relatively low edge retention steel like CPM 154 here, actually 154 CM, come to think of that. That's why they have this super grippy G10. That's why they don't care about the fact that they're boat anchors in the pocket. But when I look at actual hard use, you've got things like the Paramilitary 2 here, which the Paramilitary 2 is quite likely just as tough a knife as the Emerson Apache. The blade stock is, if anything, thicker, but it cuts better. It's lighter in the pocket. The action is freer and faster. The steel is worlds better, and you can get it in a bunch of different steels. If you want a tool steel, you can find that. So things like the fact that this grind doesn't cut that well, things like this blade doesn't have good edge retention, things like the fact that it is just a giant, heavy knife in the pocket, it's just hard for me to recommend anybody wanting to carry an Emerson Apache unless you really like the aesthetic or you really like the Emerson ethos. And frankly, for people that love that stuff, they don't care about my review anyway. So aesthetically, I love this knife. I want to love this knife, but it is very hard for me to recommend. Hope that helped. Thanks for the comment.